Well, Harmy, the four T20s serve as England and Pakistan's warm-up to the World Cup. Are there any places up for grabs? I mean, conditions presumably are going to be substantially different in England early summer than they will. But is it more about, I don't know, combinations? I mean, how important are the results?
I think the results are important because you want to win and you want to take that word that everybody loves to use, which is momentum, into the next game and into the next game. But I think performances are important, and I think if you get the performance, you should get the victory, especially when you're playing in your own back garden at home. I think you're right. I think it's about combinations. I think it's bowling combinations, areas where England, when they are strong, they need to sort of make sure that they're ruthless, i.e., the top three, top four in power play, making sure their death bowling is absolutely nailed and not who is it going to be? Nail it now and make sure that we know when we get to the Caribbean, we get to Barbados and Antigua, that we know who's going to bowl the first four, we know who's going to bowl the last four. Middle bits are a little bit more fluid, but the business areas, these combinations is what we need to find out. I think there's a little bit of a hole in the middle where I'm not so sure. I'm at this moment in time, I'm sitting here thinking England are reigning champions. I could go like the 50 over World Cup. It potentially could go both ways. It could go, they have a great start with 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they smash it out of the park, and they get onto a momentum roll, or they could fall a little bit flat, and a bit like the World Cup, and go round in circles trying to find out and define roles for certain people in certain places. I think this side's a little bit easier to define roles for. I think we are probably a six hitter, not a six hitter short. I think we're a six hitter out of form in that middle period, a middle order of 5, 6, 7. We've got Harry Brooks, who's probably going to bat 5. I think the 6, 7, 8, and well, people might be listening to this and going 6, 7, 8. If we're worried about that, then that's a bit, is that not a bit late? But what I'm talking about is we've seen so many games, especially in a big contest, where number 6, number 7, number 8 comes in and hits 5 balls and he gets 3 sixes or 4 sixes. Our middle order of the likes of Livingston, Moeen Ali, Sam Curran coming out of the IPL, they're not in the best forms, and I just worry that might be the area, because we've got to be looking at knockout phases, because this team is one of the favourites, to make sure that they're nailed on. So they're the areas that I think England need to look at. Great to see Jofra back. But you're right. I think it's about the combinations and who fits with who. And that needs to be ironed out in Pakistan before we get anywhere near the Caribbean.
Okay, well, 7 of the squad were recalled from the IPL prematurely, which has got some big wigs in India very hot under the collar. But Sam Curran was talking to the media earlier today, and he was asked what his thoughts were. I mean, obviously his team didn't reach the playoff stages, but some very, very big players like Phil Salt and Captain Joss Butler's teams are in the playoff matches. So Curran was asked what he thought about England's players leaving early, and also, as you mentioned, the excitement around the return finally of Jofra Archer.
Yeah, I think it was a decision, obviously, that was made, that probably the right thing for us all to come back, and I think it was only fair for all franchises to lose a player each or so. Obviously, Punjab, we had a few more players, and unfortunately didn't qualify. But I guess it would have been quite harsh if some franchises got to keep a couple of players and then some didn't. So I guess that's the fairest way of doing it. But I think Joss and Motti and Kesey obviously wanted us all back together for this series. I think it makes great sense, because obviously we want to be playing as a team, get used to our roles, like I said, and I think that's the main reason we all came back. I think it was, we knew that we wanted to, well, the big messaging from Joss and the coaching staff was we wanted to get the group back together, and we probably didn't have that last time. So I think this will be really good. Like I said, role clarity, guys' positions, get used to different types of training, and kind of Joss's captaincy again, all those kind of things we've been apart for a while. So I think those are going to be really crucial. And I think it's a huge series. It's start of the English summer, and Yeah, it's incredibly exciting. I'm sure any England fans or England players we extremely buzzed to have him back. He's such an addition that no side can turn down. He's obviously got that extra bit of pace and that fear factor he can bring to opposition as well. So hugely exciting. We all hope his injuries are behind him now, and he can really. It'd also be very special going and playing in Barbados and stuff like that. So I think he's extremely excited, and hopefully starts really well.
Sam Curran, talking about the IPL and Jofra Archer. Now, I have to say that we speculated very strongly 3 weeks ago when it was announced that they would all be coming back, that we thought that Butler and Salt might be persuaded otherwise. And I'm delighted to say that we're wrong about that. Now, let's talk about Sam Curran himself. And let me ask you the question that I appear to have been asking you since episode 1 of this program 3 years ago. What is he? What's his role now?
Yeah, what's his role now? It looks like it's going to be number 8. It looks like number 7, number 8, him and Moeen Ali. That seems to be the way I see the England team looking. And whether Sam Curran is then going to be that opening bowler, bowls the first 2 overs, I don't think that will be the case, because I can see Archer or Wood playing along with Topley, and they're the sort of frontline opening bowlers. So Sam Curran might bowl one of the last overs of the power play, then possibly be one of England's choices of death bowlers. Again, it's not a case of now or never for Sam, because whenever you bit like Johnny Bairstow, you write him off after he's had a little bit of a quiet spell. He comes back and gets man of the tournament like he did in Australia. So like we've been consistent, haven't we, Manners, throughout this 3 years, that he is a ridiculously talented individual who we just don't know whether he's a frontline batter who bowls a bit or a frontline bowler who bats a bit. He's such a talent. Still, again, in this tournament, we might see him be the role that bounces between going up the order if need be, if we need a left-hander at the top, because, Salt, Butler, Jacks, Bairstow, Brook, Livingston, that's a top order of 6 right-handers. So you can see why they picked Duckett, just in case we need something different from a left-hander's point of view. But I would imagine if they get to that opinion, I would imagine Sam would be the one that they'd shut up the higher up, because he's done it for his IPL team. So again, we might see him bouncing about, different batting units, different numbers. But I think we've got to find a place in the side for him and hopefully nail down a role for him, because we nailed down a role for him in Australia. He bowled at the start, he bowled at the death. He had a number 7 spot. We nailed that down for him, and he became man of the tournament. I think if we nail a role down for him in this tournament, hopefully we'll be getting rewarded, because he's in my team, so he will be in the team. Fingers crossed we get the same product out of him that we did in Australia. But where he is at this moment in time, I think that's a big question for the England selectors going into these 4 games before they get to the World Cup in the Caribbean.
When he was player of the tournament in Australia, of course, there was something in the pitches for him. His slower ball bouncers were gripping, and he was an entirely different prospect than he's been in the IPL. He's not the only bowler to have suffered there, but it's such a conventional view that you and I both have, and millions of cricket followers have had for a century, that players need to have a role. I just wonder whether Sam Curran, if he keeps improving incrementally and doing everything, and let's face it, he has done everything. He's batted top 3, he's opened the bowling, he's bowled middle overs, he's batted 8, he's been a finisher. Could he be, this jack of all trades, master of none? Could he be the mold breaker that does actually become a master of everything and can be used in any role? And if he's happy to accept that, then maybe he says, you know what, I actually don't want a defined role. I want to do what suits the team in whatever conditions we encounter.
Yeah, and as long as Sam knows that, who cares about anybody else? Really, who cares what the outside world think, or who cares what pundits or former players are going, we need to find something for Sam. We need to give him a role. We don't. As long as the management go to Sam Curran and talk to him through all different scenarios, it's a bit like the Johnny Bairstow when we weren't batting very well in Test matches. And it was like, Johnny, we're taking the gloves off you because you are so important as a batter for us that we need to protect you as a batter and use all your energy at the batter because we've got 4 others other than Joe who can't bat at this moment in time. So that's why we're taking the gloves off you. With Sam, if you sit him down and you talk to him and say, look, we can't fit you there, we can't put you there, we can't put you there. But every single game, we know for a fact you're going to have a big impact in the game. As long as that conversation and that scenario situation is spoken about with a team plan, with Sam Curran, with Josh Butler, with the management group, then no, I don't think the wider public does need to know that Sam Curran, this is his definitive role. As long as Sam Curran knows that when he's told to go and pick his bat up, he goes out there with a clear mind to go and do whatever the team needs him to. And it's the same with the ball, because like I said many, many times, don't know if he's a batter, don't know if he's a bowler. The one thing I do know, he's brilliant in a contest. And the minute he gets into a contest, I think that's where you see the best of Sam Curran. And hopefully during the World Cup, like we did in Australia, we'll see the best of Sam Curran, whether he bats at 4, bats at 8, bowls the first over, bowls the last over, bowls the middle over. I'm sure we'll see the best of him when he's in a contest. And that, for me, is all the management need to work out with him.
Okay, out of time, 10-word answer. Jofra Archer, does he play any of the 4 games against Pakistan? All 4?
I think he has to play. I probably plays 2. Along with Mark Wood, miss 1, play 1, miss 1, play 1. The one thing I will say, man, is I'm so pleased to see him bowling in the Caribbean and then for Sussex second team. And now he's ready to get in some international overs under his belt, because I was worrying that we were setting him up for a little bit of a fall if he didn't play any sort of cricket before we went to the World Cup, because I think that we've seen in the IPL how difficult it's been for bowlers. You ain't bowled for 2 years and you come in and they start, 200 is just a par score at this moment in time. What that does for your confidence. I know he's a confident lad, but he's got no full safe, anything to come back on, because he hasn't been bowled for a while. I'm pleased he's been bowled, and he looks as though he's in good order.
That clip of him bowling for Sussex second 11 must be one of the most watched second 11 matches highlights of all time.
Can you imagine that? As you've just played a club game on Saturday. Oh, we've been picked up such and such second team against Sussex. Our family's there, sitting deck chairs, picnics, a lot. And then Jofra Archer turns up, running off his long run because he's trying to get ready for the World Cup. I'm not sure I'd have been overly keen on being 22 yards away from Jofra at the minute, because he looks as though he's very, very fit. As I see Mark Wood at the weekend, Mark Wood, he's fitness-wise, from strength. I've just seen him walking around. He looks in decent order as well. So hopefully England they've got some speed and firepower, because that's what you need in 2020 cricket. You need to take wickets, and we now have wicket takers.
Talking of clips, I saw a brief clip of Shay Simmons, 20-year-old, made his debut for Warwickshire. I'm going to ask you about him, actually, in part 2, because, wow, he's been described as the new Jofra, and he looked very exciting. Anyway, a reminder, we'll bring you updates of all 4 T20s between England and Pakistan on talkSPORT. Now you're listening to Following On talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. Next up, we'll speak live with new Pakistan white ball head coach Gary Kirsten. Gary Kirsten joins us now from his car in Cape Town, where he is briefly visiting family before heading over to England for Pakistan's T20 series against England, which will include Phil Salt and Josh Butler. Gary, first of all, tell us, if you would, and thanks for your time, by the way, but how did the appointment come about? You're the white ball coach for Pakistan. Jason Gillespie is the test coach. I'm assuming you didn't apply for the job, seeing as you've never applied for any coaching job that you've ever had.
How's it, Manners and Harmy? Great to see you guys again. I got a phone call whilst I was at the IPL, and I think they asked whether I was interested, and as I have always been, I'm always interested in an international job. The reason being is I think it's always just a massive privilege to be coaching in that space. Manners, as you know, I haven't done an international job since South Africa and towards the end of 2013. So My kids are a little bit older now, which makes it slightly easier to travel. And, you know, to work with an international team of the likes of Pakistan was very appealing to me.
How exciting is it to work with? Because when you watch Pakistan, especially in a white ball game, Gary, we've got so much talent. You know, they struggle sometimes for direction, but talent, there's never any question. How exciting is it to go and work with that talent and possibly give them the direction they might need just to get them to the sort of knockout stages and how to, you know, potentially win a tournament?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Absolutely. I think everyone always talks about watching some of these players play on any given day, and you kind of get mesmerized by their abilities. But the short time I've had in connection remotely with the team, one can pick up very quickly what the potential blockages are, and I guess it's my role as a coach to assist in unlocking the natural ability that they have collectively. I think each guy individually does what they do, and sometimes very well and sometimes not so well, like any cricket player. But I think how can you get the group to fly in formation and get the team operating at its optimum collectively, and how do you get a team environment to get these bunch of individuals to thrive, you know? And that's particularly exciting for me to do something of that. It's always great working in an environment where you've got good players. I've had the good fortune just within the IPL to see that. But like any team environment, you're trying to get the momentum up and get the team to thrive under your watch.
Talking of environments, Gary, people talk about the volatility and unpredictability of Pakistan on the field, but it's off the field that you don't have any control over. There always seem to be factions battling for power, and players and coaches often become the victims of that. I wonder whether you spoke to the great Bob Woolmer, late great Bob Woolmer, about his time with Pakistan. Did you? I mean, you wouldn't have known that you would have been in this position, but did you ever speak to him about it?
I didn't, Manners, but I think I've been around the coaching circuit enough to know that pretty much any team environment that's not winning, you will get factions. So the fact that it could be it could be highlighted in even more in certain cultures and environments, absolutely. And one appreciates that. I think the one thing about being a coach of over 20 years now is that you get a little bit more thick-skinned, and that's the one thing I did learn from Bob, by the way. He had a really thick skin by the end of his coaching career, and I think you learn to take the punches and roll with the punches, I suppose, in many ways. But also you're just trying to get out there and do as best a job you can, accepting the fact that when the team's not doing well, there's always going to be a whole bunch of criticism. But I think my learnings over my 3 years with India was that there are some battles that you're just absolutely not going to win. And then you just focus on the ones that you can win, and hopefully that's enough for the team to do really well. And then secondly as well, it's really important that you build relationships upwards, in coaching. It's not only about your peers and the team and the players and your coaches, but that you work well with people that are working within the confines of the board, and hopefully build a decent relationship so that they buy into your thinking as well.
Gary, you've done a lot of coaching, whether it's with India, with South Africa, and then the time in between. You've obviously got the foundation. I've been watching some of the videos, seeing my great mate Neil McKenzie doing some coaching with the kids. Boy, you've been learning some. And them kids will be learning some good stuff, cricket stuff. But I'm sure there's some off-field stuff that Macca will probably not be teaching them, hopefully anyway, in your name. But that's another story again. But you've done the foundation stuff. How much have you missed the international cricket coaching?
Yeah, Homie, I have missed it. I think it was always something that I enjoyed. For me, I obviously did 3 years with India and 2 years with South Africa, and then made a decision maybe to go into the leagues to create some more time for myself to be at home and with the family. I think in the cricket world, we, especially as coaches, we all have those challenges. We see now pretty much around most of the main international test teams, they have split the coaching roles between test and white ball. which is something that I advocated way back in 2014 when I spoke to Andrew Strauss of the England team at that point. But it's good to see, I think, to try and find that balance. And most coaches these days are quite young guys and they've got, young families. So to try to find that balance is never easy. But I'm very excited to get back into that international space. And the one thing I'm going to enjoy is not having to go into a draft or into an auction where you've got to mix it up with all the good players. You're just basically picking from the best players in your country. I'm looking forward to that.
Talking of England, have you looked at the Test team for the last 2 years and wondered what Gazball might have looked like if you'd got that job?
Oh, I hope that word would never ever come out, and thank goodness it won't and never will. I actually don't know what the whole Bazball hype is about, to be honest with you, because what I've heard, it's just Brendan McCullum being himself, and suddenly it became Bazball, Baz being himself, because he's a very free-spirited thinker, and it's great to see that he had such a impact on a group of players to the point where they were just playing and to their potential and thriving under his watch, which is always nice to see. What Gazball would have looked like, if you want to use the term manners, I don't have a clue what it would look like, because I would certainly not be telling players to try and score at 5-6 runs and over, because, as you know, I was one of the stodgiest cricketers that ever played. But I certainly would have encouraged a fairly free-spirited, fun, enjoyable environment to play your trade and to make it as enjoyable as possible to allow players to thrive. What that would have looked like within the confines of the England dressing room, I'm not sure.
We talk about the sort of the freedom and the free spirit and enjoyment. How enjoyable is it going to be? India, Pakistan, New York, new venue. That, for me, sounds... I mean, that's taking cricket to another level.
What a privilege. What an absolute privilege. I can't wait for that match. Hopefully we put up a good show. But yeah, I mean, that is as good as cricket can offer. And also in New York, as you mentioned, there seems to be talk of a massive crowd already, which is going to be great fun. And just to be involved in that, Harmy, is going to be a real privilege.
I don't know how much interaction you've had with the Pakistan players, but I'm kind of obsessed with the amount of negative criticism that Babar Azam has received over the years. And for a phenomenal cricketer with an extraordinary record, he does seem to attract far more negative criticism from Pakistan supporters than he deserves. Have you had a chat to him?
I have, Manners, yeah, and just getting to know the players remotely a little bit. Obviously, been more in touch with Azam Mahmood, who's the interim coach at the moment, and Wahab Riaz, who's on the management there and part of the selection. But I've been in touch with Baba. I agree with you. It's he's done remarkably well as a cricketer, and sort of almost carries a lot of the weight of that team on his shoulders. But certainly reading between the lines, what we would try to do as a coaching staff is to lift that a little bit and to realize he's just one of a whole group of players, and that he can just free himself up to play with his natural talent, which we certainly saw in the last game yesterday. I think he played an outstanding innings, and hopefully we see kind of a lot more of that Babar Azam, rather than the one that feels that he has to be contributing all the time to a team. That's not fair on any player. But I think if we can unlock that and feel like there's a big group of guys that can make match-winning contributions, especially in T20 cricket, that'll take a lot of pressure off him. I think he's happy to be back as captain. So I'm looking forward to working in that relationship with captain and coach.
Gary, just finally from me, you come to England. You've just been to the IPL. England have brought all their players back from the IPL. How much is that? I know you've not got a massive amount of time with your team sort of hands on the ground, but as preparation goes to go into a major tournament, a team that you won't play in the major tournament, who's one of the favourites, these 4 games are going to be so valuable playing against England's full strength side.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a great marker for us as a team as well. And obviously we had 5 T20s against New Zealand a few weeks back. and now 3 against Ireland, and now another 4 against one of the best teams in the competition. And I think that'll be a great marker for us to understand where we are, what we need to focus on. Our biggest priority at the moment is trying to build structure within the strengths that we have, and just understanding how we actually want to play the game, because every team does play slightly differently, and that's how sport works. So the more we can be consistent with our style and the way we want to play, and how it matches up against the best teams in the world, is really important to us. So I'm thoroughly looking forward to this series. It's not going to be easy. England are a quality team, but it'll be good to see how we can look at the way we want to play and how it matches up against one of the best teams in the world.
And very finally from me, Gary, I'm interested in Gary Kirsten's global view. You've just spent 10 weeks at the IPL. It's a very, very long and taxing tournament. Unfortunately, the Gujarat Titans missed out on the playoffs, and that's given you a little bit of time off. But PSL overlapping with the IPL next year. I don't know whether you'll be able to be back with the Gujarat Titans, but franchise cricket, bilateral cricket, ICC events. Give us Gary Kirsten's global view.
The global view. It's the Bright talk, hey Manners? Because you always get asked the question. Well, the one thing I will say, having experienced this chaotic IPL in many ways, I mean, it's just been mind-boggling to see some of the batting records that have been broken. I think we need to be very careful as a cricket people to make sure that we maintain the contest between bat and ball. And that for me has been eroded a little bit in this IPL. I mean, you're playing on absolutely belter wickets on very small fields with massive bats, with an impact player, and the bowlers who are just taking an absolute pounding, where, batters are not fearing chasing 15, 16 and over with 10 overs to go. I mean, it's kind of just getting to almost a point where we've got to be very careful. And I'm just a big fan, as you would imagine or understand, Manners and Harmy, just the cricket purist in me comes out. And I just said, we need to make sure that the bowler is firmly in the contest. So what does that mean? Does it mean more sporting wickets, different kinds of wickets? I've always felt have been a lot of fun. We certainly had a team in the IPL where we lost Shami, which was a massive blow to us. So we had to focus a little bit more on our spin options. But then we were playing on absolute belter wickets. So guys were hitting through the line anyway. It wasn't making much of a difference. So I just think to maintain that balance between bat and ball is, absolutely vital. And so that's one view. Other global views for me, sport is about context. And I think if every game is a relevant game, where my young kids would want to go and watch because they are enjoying it and they feel that it's something that they want to do, that's always an important indication for me that we're on the right track as cricket people. So sometimes I do get concerned about the lack of context in many of the games. So what does that mean, context? Does it mean we need to have an ICC event every year? No, I think it could be dangerous to have, a World Cup every year or every other year, because it's always fun waiting for those events to come around. And for me, it's always fun as well having a lot of associate countries playing in those World Cups to see where they're at and build aspirations within the associate cricket environment as well. But I think if you've got context, it kind of works. And then the last point I wanted to make is we've got to be really, really careful that we don't lose Test cricket. Having Test playing nations playing 4 tests in a year, and we're seeing that with South Africa at the moment. It worries me deeply to think that Test cricket is not that important anymore. How we manage that or how we bankroll the game internationally, I'm not sure. But you can't have a major Test playing nation like South Africa play 4 tests in a year.
You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. If you have missed any of the show or you wish to catch up, you can download the podcast from the Following On feed, as always, available via the free talkSPORT app or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's turn our attention now then to, I think, an absolutely cracking latest round of county championship action. Funny how as we enter summer finally, the cricket starts improving. The informed team in Division 1 is Surrey, but in Division 2 is very, very much Sussex with their third win, top of the table. And we all know, Paul Farbrace, that championships are not won in May, but it's been a cracking start.
They're certainly not won in May, and but it has been a good start. And I've been saying for a few weeks now, we're a confident team playing good cricket, which is always a good place for any team to be, really. But you're absolutely right. I mean, there is an awful long way to go. We're not getting too excited and jumping up and down, but beating Yorkshire at home in this last round, having lost the previous game to Glamorgan, it is a big victory for us. It gives the team a lot of confidence. And I keep saying that, we've got lots of good players and we're capable of winning. It's a bit like when a young player gets their first 50, and the coach or the dad keeps telling them that, that they can score 50s or take a few wickets. And when they do it, they actually realise they're capable. And that's where we're getting to with this Sussex team at the moment, that we keep talking about the expectation to win, not hoping to win, and changing the language and being more positive and upbeat. And when you win games, when the opposition need 25 to win and they're 6 down and you win the game, they're games that players can really see that they're making great developments, and it just boosts the team with confidence, really.
Bobby, you mentioned there about young players, and you've got a good blend, but you've got a lot of good young players, and we've seen over the last sort of 3 or 4 years that sort of education get better and better. But two guys who I wouldn't say they are young, but the more established players. We had Jaden Seals on our show a couple of weeks ago, and he looks as though he's been an absolute breath of fresh air. And I think
fantastic. You did me a great job, actually. You did me a great job, you two, because he spoke about how much he was enjoying Sussex, and he was signed a contract that day if it was offered. So I joked with him that we've taken his agent out of the equation, and he's happy to come back for nothing. So thank you very much, both of you. You've done us a great job. So thank you.
But how's he settled in? First and foremost, how's he settled in? And he looks as though he's built. I know been a slowish start for Ollie Robinson, but the world of English cricket's watching Robinson off the back of the Ashes and what happened in India and everything that got. Ollie had a good week this week. He looked as though he's picking his legs up from the footage I see. That seems to be a decent partnership build now between Jaden Seals, West Indian international, and Ollie Robinson, England international.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Look, Jaden has been outstanding from the start. I mean, he's only a young man. He's 22. He has played 10 test matches, 37 wickets, and been outstanding. But the great thing about him, Harmy, is he's run in every ball. We played at Leicester. It was cold and wet. He came off for 1 over to use the toilet. Other than that, he's not left the field. And he's run in every single ball. We capped him this game at home because his commitment and effort for the team has been astounding. It really has. He bowls a very English length. He's a great athlete, and he's learned a little bit about bowling around the wicket to left-handers in terms of his approach and his alignment. James Kirtley's worked really well with him, but as a person, as a cricketer, absolutely fantastic. And you forget that he is a young man, but his knowledge of the game, his understanding and reading of the game has been fantastic. And I think the West Indies were very keen that he came and played this period because they obviously want to keep developing him. But as I was just joking earlier, he wants to come back. He wants to keep playing with us, and we're absolutely delighted to have him back next season and hopefully build a long relationship with Oliver. Look, it's been tough. You know yourself as a fast bowler, finding your rhythm is not always easy. And my frustration with Oliver has been that he's played a game, missed a game, played a game, missed a game. Now that was that was a sort of rough program that was in place. He felt that was what he wanted to do. And Rob Key, Luke Wright, they've been very clear and very straight what he needs to do to get himself into the test team. And that means he's got to bowl overs. He's got to bowl, early 80s and maintain his pace and not just lob it on the length at sort of 75 miles an hour. And he's got to back spells up. Now, I think we'll see the best of him in the next game at Lords because he's going to play again this next game against Middlesex at Lords. We'll have Jaden back as well. And I think the one the one thing that Oliver hasn't really been able to do is find that rhythm, because he, as I say, he's not played continually, and it's almost taken long spells, and at the end of long spells, to finally get some sort of rhythm and actually be brave with his lengths as well. And this game, once it got to the crunch time, he really went up a level. 25 to win, 4 wickets left. He went up a level, took 3 wickets for no runs in 2 overs, and completely changed the game. And the ball that got Lythie out, Lythie had played so well for his 70 odd and looked like taking Yorkshire to victory. And the ball that got him out was an absolute snorter. It was an incredible delivery, but it was almost as though something clicked into gear. We might lose the game, and he really upped his ante. I'm not saying he hasn't run in. I'm not saying he's not trying, but it is frustrating for him that he hasn't got that rhythm, and he just looks a little bit short to a gallop. And that's why I'm hoping that Lords, he'll be in a much better position playing back-to-back games.
A word about a couple of other players, Fabi, just quickly. I'll never forget an interview Sunil Gavaskar gave years and years and years ago when he was asked to rank his favourite 30-odd Test centuries. And I think he started off with an innings of 71 against a life-threatening attack in Trinidad, Sabina Park. And I'm just thinking Tom Alsop, on a difficult pitch, I mean, that 86 in the second innings, I would imagine it would be very much amongst his favourite innings, I would think. And also Jack Carson and James Coles, 2 spinners, both playing regularly in April and May. I mean, most spinners would be lucky to get, one spinner playing so early in the season. So you must rank them very highly, and you must have got very good pocket warmers for them.
Well, look, Tom Alsop has been excellent since he joined Sussex. He's a fantastic lad. He works really hard. And interestingly, he had a tough game in his view in Cardiff the previous round. And he's made a technical change to his game in 3 days with Grant Flower. And that work has been fantastic. And it was a high quality innings. And Grant, who's worked a lot in international cricket and played international cricket, described it as a test match type innings against a very, very good Yorkshire attack who bowled excellently. They really, really did. And Tom played fantastically well. Joe Root and Tom Alsop, and then Lythie in the second innings. Root is one of the best players in the world, and he showed that in the first innings where he got his runs, 60 odd. Second innings, Lythie played brilliantly again. Someone who's played international cricket and probably should have played a lot more. Fantastic player. But Alsop showed that he's got the technique, and he's also got the mentality to play at the top level. And that innings was absolutely outstanding. In terms of Coles and Carson, for the moment I joined Sussex last year, we've played 2 spinners in every game. And Jack missed out in a couple of games last year when he broke his finger. But other than that, we intend to play those 2 in every game. Now, Hove, you need spinners. It does turn from day 3 and 4 onwards, and the wickets have started to spin a little bit more for us. But I genuinely believe in Coles and Carson that we've got 2 absolutely outstanding young cricketers. I really do. Coles, I think Coles is probably only 12 months away from playing international cricket for England as a high-quality batter and as a left-arm spinner. His fielding is excellent. He catches brilliantly at slip. His winter away with England Lions really showed him what players of that level are capable of and how hard they work. And he came back and he talked about the Durham lads, and he said, my goodness, he said, they work hard. He said, they expect to win. And he said, they've just got this extra edge mentality. So, he came back and learned a lot from being away with the Lions. It was a brilliant, brilliant trip for him. And his practice is maturing. He doesn't just come into the ground at 9:30, 20 to 10 in the morning anymore and hit a few balls and bowl a few. He's in early every morning. His dedication to batting and bowling is top class. But I genuinely, and I'm not getting too carried away here. I think, James Coles will play for England within 12 months. I think he's that good a player, and I think he's got such a good technique, but such a good mental approach. And Carson, Carson is only going to get better. He's a very aggressive finger spinner. His batting's improved, his fielding's improved, but as a bowler, I think he's right up there. I really like playing those 2. We've got a good balanced attack, 4 seamers, 2 spinners, and I think we've got an attack to take wickets on all surfaces, and we've shown that in pretty much every game we played this season.
And Fabi, you're top of the league. Everything's going nicely going into the last round of games. at Middlesex, which would be another tough test. Me and Manners on this show, we love talking about the haves and the have-nots, and obviously Sussex are probably part of the have-nots. We had Gilo on a few weeks, obviously Worcester, another one that's in the first division, at a non-test ground. What have you made of the last couple of weeks with the 100 and the Sale, and is the divide getting bigger from your point of view as coach and sort of director of cricket down at Sussex, a county which is obviously not a test ground? What have you made about what the headlines have been and how that deal's going and how it affects the counties who haven't got the sort of embarrassment of riches of the test match grounds?
Yeah, look, I mean, having been at Warwickshire for 4 years and now at Sussex, the budgets are very different. And there's two bits to that. I'm a big fan of the 100. I think the 100, if managed properly by the ECB, could be the absolute lifesaver of English cricket, because I think, the 100 has done what it was supposed to do. Bring in new and different and diverse crowds, and also provide a game that players want to play in. There's better money for the players that play in it, which I'm all in favour of. I think that what it brings to the English game is fantastic. And yes, we want it to be played in August, but of course we want to play county cricket as well at that time. But the 100, if we use it properly and we use the money that comes from it, whether you sell individual teams, whether you sell the competition, I don't really mind. What I do mind is that money is ring-fenced from it to make sure we can then have the best county programme that we need to have. And it can fund grassroots cricket, it can fund national counties cricket, it can fund pathway cricket, women and girls cricket, and county cricket. And rather than us having to keep arguing every year about we need to have anything between 16 and 20 T20 matches for the non-test match grounds to make their money, because we know we don't make much money from county cricket, but we do from T20s. So if the money is used properly, we can have the right balanced county schedule, because we're not all playing to make money. We're actually playing because it's the right programme for county cricket, to develop players to play for England, because that's where they come from. They come from county cricket to play for England. So county cricket needs to be strong. It needs to be good. And the other aspect, for a club like Sussex, we were hugely disappointed not to get a women's team in this professional round of women's teams that have just been handed out. We put in a very strong bid. I was part of that bid process. We went to Lords and we thought we had a really good, strong bid, because we're never going to be a test ground. We're never going to host one-day internationals. We're never going to have a 100 team at Hove, but we could have had professional women's game and expanded our club that way. So we were hugely disappointed we didn't get that. But look, I'm a huge fan of the 100, always have been. And I think I think it's the way to make sure that we fund county cricket and we manage county cricket going forwards.
And just finally, Farby, I wonder whether, I don't wonder. I'm fairly certain that you'd be the kind of man with a very clear idea of how the summer should be built and the schedule. And we might have to do a separate podcast on that. If you do have any very clear thoughts, we'd love to hear from. And also, I'm assuming that winning is the great panacea to all off-field problems. I mean, all the difficulties that Sussex has been having off the field for the last 2 or 3 years. Now that you're winning, I bet they're all forgotten or smoothed over, are they?
Well, it's really interesting because, a journalist tried to get me talking about Ali Orr again recently. And I said, look, Ali's just got his first 100 for Hampshire. And I sent him a text saying, well played, Ali. Absolutely chuffed for you getting your first 100. He replied back saying, thank you. And, great to see the lads starting well. So, there was a lot made of stuff over the course of the winter. But look, Chris Adams, Ian Gould, they message me every week. I speak to Gunnar every week, and they want Sussex to do well. Everybody wants Sussex to do well. And some of the frustration from some of the former players around the club, maybe surviving rather than thriving. And I think that's where, the change of language, talking about expecting to win, winning games of cricket. And over the last 3 days at home, we've had Joe Root playing, we've had Yorkshire there, who always bring a lot of people. The sun's been shining, and it's been an excellent game of cricket. So the feel-good factor around Hove at the moment is really, really good. We've got a new chief exec, and, he and I had the same conversation that Stuart Kane and I used to have at Warwickshire. If we win on the pitch, they can win off the pitch. And it really does make a big difference. And Stuart, You know, he'd been involved in Glasgow Rangers, he'd been involved in rugby at Wolves, and he came into Warwickshire saying, you win on the pitch, I can win off it. And Pete Fitzboyden and I have the same conversations at Hove. It doesn't matter which ground you're at, whether you're at a test ground or a smaller ground, the fact that if you're winning and people are looking forward to watching the team playing good cricket and players being picked to play for England at all levels, that's a real feel-good factor around any cricket club. And you know, winning makes us all feel a lot better. You know, I was in at the ground this morning, and the amount of people saying, oh, brilliant, well done, great win, top of the table. And that's where you want people enthused. You know, hopefully our blast tickets will go up now. The sale of them will go up. We only won one game at home last year. We won 5 away in the blast. And so our ticket sales are a bit low at the moment. And we need good ticket sales to be able to do things with the team and the club, support other areas of the club going forward. So, you know, winning games of cricket makes a huge difference. It really, really does. And look, I've got some great ideas, I think, in terms of the county structure. You probably haven't got time for them now, but I'd be delighted to come on and chat to you, because I really do have strong views, and I've been involved for a long time. And I do listen to other people. It might not sound like it, but I do listen to other people. And I think the county game is in a really good place. And that's why I care passionately that we make the right decisions as a cricketing family around what happens with the 100, you know, because we're at a really important stage. Fantastic. We've got women's professional teams. Fantastic. More boys and girls are playing the game. Fantastic. More boys and girls and families are watching the game. And we all, you know, have a duty to make sure we look after this game, because I think it's in a good place. And it's taken a bit of a beating over the last couple of years, but I think cricket's in a good place in England. We're producing a lot of very good players. We saw that in the winter, you know, Bashir, you know, going and playing for England in India. We saw with the lad at Lancs, I can't think of his name now, the left arm spinner, Hartley. You know, seeing young players like that playing for England, there are some seriously talented young players in English cricket, you know, men and women, boys and girls. There's a lot of talented people coming through, and we just need to make sure that we've got the structure right. But yeah, I've got some strong views, but as I say, it's probably too much for now.
We will make time another time,
Definitely.
a little bit later in the summer. Farby, thank you so much. Brilliant start. Keep it up. We look forward to talking to you later on to, well, maybe toast your promotion. Paul Farbrace, Sussex head coach. You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, along with Durham Hall of Famer Steve Harmison. And next up, we'll round up the week's other big stories and look back at a big win for England in their T20 series with Pakistan. Georgie Heath, talkSPORT cricket reporter. Well, Georgie, we want to review what was a very, very impressive performance. Started a bit wobbly, didn't it, for England in that first T20? But my goodness me, they hit their straps in the second half of that game and in the other two.
I mean, yeah, not the ideal start, but I guess it's good to start badly and get better from there. When England were 11 for 4 in that first game, I was sort of thinking this is not the summer we were anticipating as we look ahead to a T20 World Cup later on in the year. So look at it, they play Pakistan in a series at the moment. They've got New Zealand coming up. And actually, as you look at it, you expect them to win all of the T20s coming up, this England side. You know, they won the T20 series in the Ashes last year against Australia. They won the T20 series against New Zealand earlier on this year. So they're looking, well, in theory, they were looking really good. That 11 for 4 was a bit wobbly, but actually it gave the chance for Amy Jones playing in her 100th T20 on her home ground to sort of rediscover that form. She's always, I found for her, she's an incredible player and stands in her own right as an incredible player. But following Sarah Taylor was always just going to be so hard. And she's always had that sort of having to live up to that. She's a great player. And then there's sort of, oh, you know, England, they'll never replace her. But she's rediscovered her form, both with the bat and obviously with the gloves. And that's what's really exciting, because in those middle overs, having someone like Amy Jones knowing that she can come in and do that is really exciting. And then Danny Wyatt obviously rediscovering her form in the final T20, a big old 87 off just 48 deliveries after 2 single figure scores. So that's really exciting, you know, doing typical Danny Wyatt things, flicking it all over the place. But it's tricky because Pakistan, you know, England are expected to win these games. And there were moments when Pakistan really had it, but then, you know, they dropped Danny Wyatt 3 times and you can't be doing that as a team playing against someone like England. So England have got to think, yes, we won these T20s, but what are we doing wrong of the last T20 World Cup? So yes, a really positive performance in someone like Sarah Glenn, who I think is just perennially underrated. She's an incredible player. And then the likes of Danny Gibson, who just came out, gave it a good old bash. The one thing that's going to be interesting is how they line up with their opening bowlers, what they have as their opening bowling pair. Remember, they sort of are opening with Charlie Dean, and it's been Lauren Bell was replaced by Lauren Filer in the last game. And obviously, Filer has absolute pace, which is there's a great point of difference. But also, you're looking at going somewhere like Bangladesh. Do you want someone like Lauren Bell who took 5 wickets in the first 2 games, or do you want that point of difference with the pace? So I think they're still sort of trying to figure out that opening bowling partnership, and perhaps they're opening batting as well. The Boucher and Wyatt, they know each other well, but Maya Boucher seems to keep getting herself run out, which is always a bit of an issue. So there's a few questions still to ask.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, Georgie, are England looking to just win what's in front of them, or are they having one eye on Bangladesh? Because Bangladesh is going to be a completely different scenario altogether. The culture's different, the pitches are different. You are going to have different qualities as opening bowlers, opening batters, and etc. So are England, the favourites for everything to play this summer in English conditions, but are they looking at moulding the team now and plans now to more towards gearing up Bangladesh conditions, or is it just simple, let's just win the games in front of us and get to the World Cup and nail the World Cup off the back of winning everything that's been sort of set out?
Well, I think they will always have an eye on that T20 World Cup, especially because that series in New Zealand's beginning of July, and then there's quite a long period between them starting their T20 World Cup on the 3rd of October against South Africa. So they have got a long time between that without any international cricket. Obviously, we've got the 100 going on between then, and you've got the likes of the Rachel Hayhoe-Flint, the Charlotte Edwards Cup. So this is sort of their opportunity to figure out where they stand as a team. Yes, the conditions aren't the same, but it's still what that unit works like as a team, who you're going to send out as your opening batters, how are you going to work that as your opening pair? Are you going to bowl Sarah Glenn in the power play or not? She did yesterday, which she doesn't normally do really, but then if you're looking ahead to somewhere like Bangladesh, are you going to have that spin bowling in the power play? So you can tell they have sort of got this one eye on that T20 World Cup, because obviously there was that disappointment last time of going out in the semi-final. And then they'll be facing South Africa in that first game on the 3rd of October. So, yeah, it's interesting sort of looking ahead to the future, because it seems quite far away, October. I like to think it is quite far away because I'm just about getting used to it being warm. But, it comes around quickly. So they're going to have to really have a think. They're playing this attacking form of cricket. We talk about it with the men's side as well. That's what they do under John Lewis, this England women's team. They try and play this attacking form of cricket. We saw Danny Wyatt doing it yesterday. So, yeah, it will be interesting to see how they sort of fare in the ODIs. They haven't played that many ODIs recently. And then in that series against New Zealand, yes, England conditions, but it is about moulding that team.
Talking of spinners, I know you've got a spin class to go to, Georgie. But before you go, very, very quickly, Pakistan were expected to challenge England more strongly in the T20 series. So there's 3 ODIs coming up now. I mean, I can't. Can you see in any way that there could be an upset there? And you mentioned also John Lewis, who seems to have attracted some interesting conversation and speculation about his position, however well his team are doing.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. And also he spoke about using AI as a way of helping him select his teams. And I just never know how I feel about AI. So I don't know, if I could somehow change it so AI select me and send me some kit, that'd be great too. But no, I can't, if I'm honest, I can't see Pakistan beating England in any of these games unless England have a really bad day and they just go to Sainsbury's, as my mother would say. They should easily walk these ones, if I'm honest. I mean, it might well be rained out at Derby if you look at the weather forecast, but also the weather forecast knows even less than I do. So that's really saying something. So I would expect England to win all of these ones. New Zealand will push them a bit more, but I would still expect them to win those ones as well. And it'll just be interesting to see how they tinker with these teams. Yes, John Lewis coming under a bit of fire, but I don't think now is quite the time that we should all be digging at their head. We're like, nothing's going to change, obviously, and then it just throws another spanner in the works at quite an important time. Obviously, England's women haven't won a world title since that massive win in 2017 in front of a sold-out Lords, so they are looking to try and right that They had that upset in Australia when there was no rain delay day, so theirs got rained out, and so they didn't make the finals. So I think I didn't realize how much that was still bothering me, because that's a while ago now, but it is. Luckily that's all changed, so we do have rain delay days, which is good. So I would expect England to make the semi-final at least at this T20 World Cup. They've got definitely the easier group as well. It's England, Bangladesh, Scotland, who obviously qualified for the first time ever, which was incredible, South Africa and the West Indies. And basically, if you get Hayley Matthews out, you're absolutely flying against the West Indies.
Georgie, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks so much for your time, and spin well. You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, along with Double Ashes winner Steve Harmison. A reminder, you can now watch us on YouTube as well if you're not already doing that. Just head over to the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel and subscribe. Okay, very, very quick look at the other county news, Harmy, because, of course, those who want a more extended and fuller review of the championship can listen to you along with the team on Following On County Cricketer, which comes out every Thursday. So you just have a look out for that and you get a full review. But this is just a couple of snapshot highlights. Surrey continuing their domination of Division 1, recovering from 15 for 4. And didn't that get people excited on the first morning against Worcestershire before prevailing by 281 runs? Loads and loads of stories. Dan Worrell took match figures of 10 for 57. And interestingly, he qualifies, becomes England qualified next year. Ben Stokes made his return, first championship game for 2 years. Bowled 38 overs. Doesn't do things in small measures, the England captain. And took 5 for 98 in the second innings. Hundreds for Ollie Robinson, 2 for Keaton Jennings. Zach Crawley, huge double for Kent after a very, very slow start. So there you go. There's a couple of snapshots, Harmy. Grab a couple of those.
Yeah. Well, that Surrey game, Dan Lawrence got two 50s, which were, or 2 80s, I think, were important. Ollie Pope got hitting the runs again. Dan Worrell's a good bowler. He's a very, very good, I would say, a good county bowler. I think he probably could be a good international bowler, but I think by the time he qualifies, let's wait and see how that goes. Great to see Ben playing again. Great to see Ben bowling again. He looked as though he was running in nicely. He got some wickets. Durham nearly pulled off, a brilliant, run chase. Bedingham, another fantastic 100. What a summer he's having so far. And we keep talking about it, don't we? I think there's one spot for England up for grabs, and that's number 7. He's got to have a bat in his hand, and he's got to be good with the gloves. And every time we put somebody in, somebody else comes out on the back and say, "Hold on, don't forget about me." Jamie Smith last week. Phil Salt's been doing it all. IPL, Johnny Bairstow got dropped and came out of the woodwork and went, "Just don't forget about me," with 100 and about 40 balls. But in front of the England captain, Ollie Robinson, 171 not out in a run chase, which I think will excite the England captain the way he went about it. He got 171 off 206 balls. The way Ben Stokes wants his team to play. I just wonder. I keep saying this front runner, and I change my opinion every single week when somebody else comes in. And I just wonder, having Ben watched it close hand, this kid Ollie Robinson, the wicket-keeper, is very, very good. And I just wonder if he might have just nipped into pole position because the captain's seen him, the captain's understood how he works, seen him from close quarters. In that 171, going about the way he did, chasing a big 4th innings total, like England like doing. I just wonder if that might tip the balance in the favour of the Durham wicketkeeper when it comes to selection in the first week in July. So, Zach had one of his games that he'll always have. First ball out, nicked off. Thank you very much. However he got out, I can't remember how he got out. Thank you very much. And then add into another low score, everybody questioning his place, and then he shuts them up with a double 100. Typical Zach Crawley. The boy's unbelievably talented, and that was a good game. One thing I will say, Manners, about this week, I think this has been the best round of county championship matches for a hell of a long time. We've heard Paul Farbrace talk about county cricket being a great place. producing good players, producing England players, producing players standing out with no fear anymore. And I think this week, for me, has been the best county cricket week for a long, long time. Viewers might have a different opinion. Let us know. But I tell you what, I've really enjoyed looking and following the scores and seeing the streams, because there's some people coming into form just at the right time when the selectors are going to be looking. Once the World T20 starts, the selectors will be looking at who's playing well in red ball cricket, ready for the Test match summer. So, yeah, I've enjoyed this week.
Okay, just before we move on to the final word, Harmy, I just want to congratulate Essex on overcoming our first innings deficit of 235 to beat Warwickshire by 4 wickets, making 331 for 6 in the run chase. Brilliant, brilliant effort. And Shay Simmons, somebody said, have a look at this guy, Shay Simmons, 20 years old, made his debut for Warwickshire, took 3 for 12, and I eventually found some highlights. Wow. But obviously, the player of the week was on a losing side, but Ben Gibbon made 75, batting at number 10 for Worcestershire against Surrey.
Worcestershire.
So
and
clearly,
as well, Gloucester 700 as well.
Yes, well, there's that. Gloucester. I wanted to mention that Gloucestershire's 706 for 6. My eye was caught not only by the hundreds by Cameron Bancroft and Ben Charlesworth and Graham van Buren, but by the 78 extras, and I wondered whether that made the top 10. Nope. Top. Most extras conceded in a county championship innings. Have a guess.
100, 110?
98.
98.
Essex against Northamptonshire in 1999. So
Wow.
The 78 conceded by Leicestershire, not even top 10.
Matt, you mentioned Simmons, man. I met with Rob Key earlier before the season started, and sent me a group of bowlers, young bowlers who he's still giving me some stick because I haven't gone concrete back to him about everything because I'm useless when it comes to things like that. But Simmons was one of them, and he was the one that stood out. There was a couple of young bowlers at Middlesex that stood out. Young Tom Aspinall was on that list. There was about 15 bowlers he sent me 30-second clips of, and I was so fulfilled when I watched them, and I keep watching them because we have got some talent out there. Young boy from Middlesex, big, tall, very, very skillful, was another one on the list. But Simmons, along with Jack, who played under 19s, Aspinall, who got 5 for it in the first innings against Durham, he was in there as well. But Simmons was one that really, really stood out. And I just wonder, when he sent me the list and I've watched these bowlers, sometimes you've got to be lucky. You've got to be at the right club. You've got to have the right break. You've got to not get injured when one of the first team bowlers gets injured and you get your chance. Or if you're at a club where they've got 3 gun bowlers like Surrey or Hampshire, where's their pathway coming through? Sometimes you have to be lucky. Sometimes you can't just keep kicking the door down because the established bowlers are very, very good in red ball cricket. They're very, very durable. They're very, very experienced. And you might miss your chance. So when you do get your chance, you nail your chance. And Simmons this week definitely got his chance. And he's nailed it because he's got some experienced bowlers there. Hannel Dolby leading wicket takers, Chris Rushworth leading wicket takers. You look at what he's done this week. So that tips your hat and says, fair play. The young lad's got his chance, but he's actually took it as well, which is sometimes half the battle.
Okay, we literally have 1 minute, and I'm going to stick to it. So, final word this week does not go to the Royal Challengers Bengaluru, who became the first team in IPL history to lose 6 in a row and win 6 in a row to qualify for the playoffs. Amazing stuff. So well done to them, and well done to Cricket Ireland for resolving their dispute with the players. They've all got new contracts. Well done to them. But I don't know whether this is going to surprise you or not. But this week's final word goes to Samoa. Do you know why?
Obviously, they've qualified for a tournament. I think it was the women, was it? Is it the women? Did the Samoa women qualify for the Under-19 World Cup?
Yes, that's absolutely right, Harmy. And you know how excited I get by the growth of the game in tiny nations and nations we don't associate with cricket. And your knowledge of geography is probably no better than mine. But Samoa qualified for the Women's Under-19 World Cup in 2025, joining Indonesia, Japan, Fiji, and Papua New Guinea, who we know are an established cricket-playing nation. So What is that region called again? Is it Pacific, Pan-Pacific?
Pan-Pacific,
I mean,
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how fantastic is that? Samoa.
Unbelievable. It is. It's great. And it's, we all talk on this show, Manners, about the haves and the have-nots. You know, in football, the Premier League, I mean, football didn't start in 1992. Yeah, it isn't played by 20 teams in England. It's played by 500 million. Yeah, you look at cricket. Cricket's not played by 10, 11 test match nations. It's not played by 800 sides in this country. I mean, the world is massive and the cricket is loved. And to see under 19, especially women's under 19s, played Indonesia, Japan, Fiji, Papua New Guinea, and now Samoa, just shows, you know, where this cricket's going to be played. We're going to see a game in New York played by India and Pakistan in the men's game. And that could be the sort of blue to that. I mean, that lights the blue touch paper. Wow, bang, that gets America. And if it does, you know, the four corners of the world that loves the game. It's not just played by 10 nations. It's played by everybody around the world, and we love it.
And I'm going to be there, and I will talk to you, and we'll do a program from New York.
Brilliant.
You've been listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. If you missed any of the show and you want to catch up, you can download the podcast from the Following On feed. Available as always via the free talkSPORT app. We'll be back at the same time next week, and we'll be looking back at the first two T20s against Pakistan. But for now, this has been another edition of Following On.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.